Well met, and welcome to Week 1, Day 3 of the Hearthstone Global Games. We've assembled 192 players from 48 different countries to answer a question as old as Hearthstone itself. Which country truly reigns supreme in the tavern? My name is Robert Wing, and I'm joined on the desk live from Burbank, California by Cora. Along with our European compatriots in Poland, we're going to find an answer to that very question in the coming weeks. Now, Cora, you and I have hung out. We're going to skip the pleasantries. I don't need to ask how excited you are. I know how excited you are. What I do want to know about is this little piece of Brazilian flair you got going on down there.
I do, in fact, have a little piece of Brazilian flair, and I hope it portrays just how excited I am, even though you already claim to know. But in fact, before the Hearthstone Global Games kicked off just a few days ago, all of the casters got together over Skype, and we sort of decided to put our bids in for what countries we thought would perform best in this tournament. I decided to go out on a limb and pick one of our South American competitors and went with Brazil. I think their four-man team is just incredibly strong. We've seen a lot of success from South American countries and from South American competitors in the Hearthstone Championship Tour, and I think they've got a great chance.
Yeah, and just so you know at home, when we were making up the rules for this, in order to, make it fair and to protect Raven and Sottle from themselves, we decided you couldn't actually vote for your home country, so that's why we're not voting for the USA. As you can see here, there we go. I've gone with Canada. I voted for Cydonia last year in the Spring Championship for the Hearthstone Championship Tour. And it was the one time I was actually right in my prediction, so I'm going with Cydonia again. I think this time he's got a great backup in the form of Apex Void, Hot Form, and of course, the God Purple. So I'm going with France. Looking forward to seeing how these predictions pan out. Let's talk a little bit about the format for the Hearthstone Global Games. As you can see here, we are currently in Stage 1. That's going to be 8 groups of 6 teams participating in a 10-week round robin. The upper half of these teams in each group will move on to Stage 2, which is going to be 6 groups of 4 teams doing a 3-week round robin, leading ultimately to the wonderful finale of Stage 3, which is a 16-team single elimination with the top 4 advancing to a live LAN finals later on this year.
And of course, it's teams of 4, and there was one team captain chosen. The highest ranking HCT point earner from each country automatically got a spot if they wanted it, and then the community voted for the other 3 places to round out these teams of 4.
Yeah, we see here looking at the groups now, Sweden off to a good start in Week 1, going 1-0. That's mostly, Team Alliance with also Show. We see China unfortunately falling 0-1 and currently manning the bottom of the group, but we will see who wins tonight between Brazil and Indonesia and know a little bit more about this group.
Then we're moving on to Group B, Netherlands, and of course, the good old US of A coming out very strong in the last couple of days. 3-0 game record against Romania and the United Kingdom, unfortunately for Sottle and Raven.
There's a lot of fight. I'm gonna give some platitudes to, not just pretend like I'm shamelessly homering North America, the United States. But looking at Group C, no surprise, Russia comes out 1-0. This is an absolute powerhouse of a team in the Hearthstone Global Games. So as I said, it's not really surprising to see that result. Spain unfortunately falling 0-1, and we will know a little bit more as Argentina is taking on Australia tonight.
Yeah, going to be an absolutely incredible matchup. It's going to be our first one of the night. Some familiar faces for both Argentina and Australia. Then we've got Group D, South Korea. Very strong record this week. Of course, 1-0, 3-1 game record up against Greece, who unfortunately didn't have quite as much luck, so they lost their first round. And then rounding out this group, Hong Kong, Hungary, Portugal, and Slovakia we will be seeing next week.
Yeah, we see here Group E, that's going to be Norway, Chile, Israel, Italy, Japan, and Finland. Norway went ahead and in the opening fight there took 1-0 over Finland, who, unfortunately, without the aid of Savitz, they're going to need to turn to their great mentor in Savitz, the great Hearthstone streamer, and ask him what they can do to turn the ship around.
Absolutely. And if we look at Group F, Canada, your pick to take it all. 3-0 right out of the gate. Very impressive start from them, taking out France 0-3. So unfortunate, France is going to have a lot of time to, of course, step back into this tournament. Belgium, Denmark, Kazakhstan, and Malaysia we will see more of later on.
Yeah, Group G here, Taiwan going 1-0 in this first week. Poland, unfortunately, shout out to Lothar. The team didn't do so hot, but still plenty of daylight for Poland in the coming weeks of Stage 1 to turn the ship around. And then we see the rest of the group is Mexico, Singapore, Turkey, and Vietnam.
Looking at Group H, Czech Republic and Ukraine, very strong performances earlier this week, taking out Germany and the Philippines. Certainly all eyes have been on Germany. Some roster shakeups before this tournament even started, and they faltered a little bit this week, but like we said before, there's plenty of time in this first stage of the tournament for all of these teams that lost the first week to come back and have a great showing.
Yeah, and they lost 3-2, at the hands of Pistol Pete himself. Kalento just coming out with the Paladin, playing that buff, or hand buff Paladin, playing the Elemental Paladin, and sometimes you just get Kalento'd, but yeah, it looked like Germany was still having a ton of fun. We saw them all hanging out at Life Coach's place in Austria, so plenty of daylight for Germany.
Yes, absolutely. Germany has plenty of time to come back into this tournament.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look for the schedule for tonight. This is going to be the last night of week one. Happy that we have the opportunity to close it out. We'll begin with Argentina taking on Australia and finish out the night with Brazil throwing down against Indonesia. Very excited about these games. I've had a chance to talk with some of the members of these teams, and everyone's coming here with the plan to win. And I know that sounds a little bit, oh, okay, everyone wants to win, but these teams are feeling incredibly competitive and happy to show off what their respective countries can do.
Yeah, and these are some of the lesser-known countries. So Argentina, with some familiar faces, Payensei, Snail, Nalguidan, and Ildami. Payensei and Snail, of course, had good showings in the Hearthstone Championship Tour last year.
Yeah, we see Australia also well represented in terms of Hearthstone Championship Tour veterans. Naviut and Joan both had their own showings for the Asia Pacific Championships. That was the top 8 for last year, and Ender and Twiz round out the squad. So definitely a healthy mix for both of these teams. I would have to say, feeling like they're pretty evenly matched, all things considered.
Yeah, it looks like very evenly matched teams. And here you can see Argentina is an absolutely beautiful country.
Yeah, there's just so many different things to see in Argentina. If you take a look on a map, it's a very long country. There's very different forms of geographic things to see. And look at the natural world here of Argentina. This is one of those places I absolutely want a vacation. Australia, maybe a little bit less so, has kind of the reputation of being kind of this place full of wild and savage beasts. Maybe fitting that we are, obviously in Journey to Ungoro. But don't worry, there's people here too piloting those boats you're seeing on your screen. Giant spiders, thankfully, have not yet learned to pilot boats.
Well, wild and savage beasts. We do have Naviut on the Australian team, and I would have to, segue into that one. He has been a great competitor for quite a while in the Hearthstone scene. And here you can see from Group C, our first match of the day, going to be Argentina taking on Australia.
Yeah, and even though we're still very young into the Hearthstone Global Games tournament here, there's a lot to be said about getting that win early, coming in with a brand new squad. Especially if you're the leader, how do you motivate these guys? How do you get them to go the distance? Let's go ahead and take a look, though, at the game format. Cora, do you want to break that down?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a 9-class unique format to the Hearthstone Global Games. So each team must have 9 classes represented. Of course, between the 4 players, each player gets 2. From then, it is a blind pick 5-set match, playing typical Conquest. If it goes to game number 5, however, that's when the ace comes in. And the ace is one of the players who has won or lost previously in the match, comes out for game number 5, and that is where the 9th class is represented. They have the option of choosing either the class they didn't use earlier on in the set or that 9th class.
Yeah, and I really want to point out, if you're someone who comes in and your team selects you to be that ace player, it's because they have confidence in you. It's because they believe that in the clutch, when the shot clock's winding down, they're going to pass you the ball every single time, and they're going to ask you in that pivotal game 5 to kind of deliver them from the series.
Yeah, and here we can see our first match is going to be against PNC taking on Naviut. So these are both the team captains. I would say 2 of the stronger players on each of these teams. It's going to be a great way to kick off this series.
Yeah, we've seen both of them now at the Hearthstone Championship Tour, and Pansay kind of won some acclaim not only for his performances on the Hearthstone Championship Tour, but also in the Copa America, South America tournament circuit. He's someone who brought it forth Dragon Warrior, and a lot of people kind of credit him as refining that list. Naviut, you got to tank up to rank up. That's our boy Naviut. We are going to see the picks coming in now. Okay, Pansay coming in with the Mage deck first, and Naviut's going to be bringing Warrior. So if you haven't watched a Hearthstone tournament in a while, this is not the same thing you were seeing a month ago. This is a totally different game. We've had set rotation, we've had Hall of Fame, we had Journey to Ungoro come out, so there's a lot of different ways these classes can be played.
Yeah, in just a week since Journey to Ungoro actually launched on all of the servers, the Mage has... It feels like 3 really viable archetypes. They have a freeze mage, they have that quest time warp mage, and then more of an aggressive burn mage. And then warrior, of course, has 2 main classes. Everybody's favorite pirate warrior is still very strong. And then, of course, the quest taunt warrior build, which I have been having quite a lot of fun with since Ungoro came out.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, though, the Pirate Warrior's still around, but they lost a very important tool in the set rotation in Sir Finley Murgleton. If you ever played against that deck on the ranked play ladder and, all of a sudden Finley came out and Life Tap came out, you were just like, well, this looks bad for us, but you see the guys, you should recognize them from the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Important to note, both of them are playing alone in their homes. Predictably, Naviut is surrounded by anime. Wouldn't be Naviut without it, but they are on comms with the rest of their teams, and they have the opportunity to talk the plays through with them. So if you see them talking, they're not talking to themselves, they're talking to the rest of the teams.
Yeah, communication is very important in a team format. And here we can see some fast facts about PNC and Navi Ut. PNC, of course, a competitor, 2016 Hearthstone Championship Tour, second highest total HCT point earner for Argentina, and he has played in quite a few of the Copa America tournaments, won Season 3, and finished top 8 at the Grand Finals.
Yeah, and Navi Ut, as we mentioned earlier, top competitor from Australia. Some facts you may not know about him. Navi Ut regularly streams on Twitch and also has some impeccable legs, often showing them off with his infamous short shorts. Can confirm have been around the very handsome man, and Navi Ut wishes he was the star of an anime where his super crime fighting powers came from his shorts. Thank you, TJ, for that really holistic look into Navi Ut. You know Navi Ut the competitor. Now get to know Navi Ut the man, I suppose.
Navi Ut, the shorts wearer. Yeah, I would say that really just sums up who he is as a person, but does it sum up his Hearthstone play? We're going to have to see if he can take a win in game number 1.
Sure. So as we pointed out, he is going to be piloting that warrior deck. Now, we don't know the deck list. This is important to note. This is not like the Hearthstone Championship Tour where we have all that kind of displayed in front of us. So we have to mostly assume for a few minutes here, but I would be surprised if Navi Ut is not playing Quest Warrior. This is the natural transition to kind of what he's famous for aside from Freeze Mage.
Well, I mean, you called him Navi Ut tank up to rank up.
Yep.
We cannot tank up anymore. Justicar Trueheart has rotated out of standard, but the Taunt Warrior is as close as we're going to get, and it feels pretty strong right now. So I also would be surprised if this wasn't a Quest Warrior, and it is.
Okay, so we have here Quest Warrior versus Quest Mage. Now, I'm going to speak a little bit to Quest Mage, as this is a deck I've played a lot of. The version Pansay is running now looks to basically stall out the game until it can take the second term via Time Warp, the reward for Open the Way Gate, and then play down Sorcerer's Apprentice and Molten Reflection until it gets to the point where it just goes infinite on Fireballs. You have 4 Sorcerer's Apprentices, you have Antonidas, you play a spell, and you just keep playing free Fireballs until you beat your opponent. It's incredibly strong, and frankly, in this matchup, is probably the only way you're going to win. There is another version of this mage out there that uses Giants, which are very handy to tempo out against aggro, but for this particular matchup, I think Pansay's got a way better shot.
Yeah, the Giants certainly can represent quite a bit of damage, but when you have a taunt wall in the way, which is what the Quest Warrior is looking to do, they actually have a very hard time hitting face and sealing the deal. So I believe the Antonidas insta-kill with the Fireballs and the Sorcerer's Apprentice is hopefully the way that Pansay went with this. It's going to be his best shot at winning. And then, of course, for Navi Ut, the Taunt Warrior needs to play 7 Taunt minions, and they are rewarded with Sulfuros, Hand of Ragnaros. Turns your hero power into Die Insect. 2 mana, deal 8 damage to a random enemy. So you have this sense of inevitability with the Quest Warrior that if you're able to accomplish the quest, remove your opponent's minions, and simply live long enough to be able to make use of Sulfuros, then you have a very good chance of winning from there.
That's important to note, Cora, to your point, that both decks kind of work in this inevitability time frame where once things get going, there is a kind of finale to this, which is either the Ragnaros Hero Power Die Insect attritioning out your board, hitting you for 8 damage until you're dead, or you getting comboed by the Mage. And I want to point out both of these players had very good early starts here. We see Arcanologist, a new card from Journey to Ungoro, automatically draws a secret from your deck. I just want to point out 2 mana 2/3, and this is a great card and it draws a secret. We used to have Mad Scientist.
The thing was, Mad Scientist wasn't even the craziest card at that point in time. We also had Shielded Minibot, we had Dr. Boom, we had Sludge Belcher. But now that Mad Scientist has been gone for a while, Arcanologist coming in has really made Ice Barrier viable in decks like this because you can reliably draw secrets out of your deck now in the early game very easily. So it actually has made Freeze Mage a very strong build as well. I think Monsanto was playing around with that one quite a bit, and it caught on with Laughing even. But with more of the combo-built deck, Arcanologist still very strong.
Yeah, we see Navi Ut just kind of asserting what the main core idea of this deck is, which is play taunts. Just keep playing taunts, and for him, usually the Control Warrior, at this point the Quest Warrior, is seen as the more inevitable of the decks that are playing, but this is actually a situation where he kind of has to go fast here, because 8 damage a turn is nice, but infinite Fireballs will just kill you.
The thing is, this is quite a bit reminiscent of the old Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage matchup. Now, in that case, Control Warrior was heavily favored because of the Armor Up hero power and the ability to get out of range of the Mage's damage. But this is quite literally an infinite kill mage. As long as you have time in your turn, you can keep dealing 6 damage with free fireballs off of Antonidas if you have the correct setup. So Naviud will not be able to get out of range at any point in time if Payensei is running that finisher.
Now, that said, Naviud has already put himself in a good position to begin pushing pressure. He has activated the Brave. He has the Ravaging Ghoul that cleared the rest. Admittedly, Payensei's small board, which is mostly minions for cycle. So we're going to see here Argentina, Payensei going to use Primordial Glyph, which is a new spell to Journey to Ungoro. It allows him to discover a spell and then reduces the cost by 2. So in almost every scenario, unless you get a spell that's less than 2, you're basically just getting value because you're paying the price of that spell in 2 chunks, basically.
Yeah, and open the Waygate, obviously. You have to play spells that did not originate in your deck. So with Primordial Glyph, that is one of the best methods to do it. Lots of players have actually been using Primordial Glyph into Primordial Glyph into Primordial Glyph. Those are free. They do count towards the quest. And important to note, the coin does as well.
Yeah, so, if you're one of those players who's always kind of complimented, like, oh, the rogue, they get the coin. That's great for them. It's a huge boost. Now the mage really gets that benefit. They always had it from Antonidas, but this is kind of another way that you can look at this as the benefit for the mage. So good for Payensei to have that coin early on.
Yeah, very important there. And Australia, for Naviud here, he's going to be the aggressor in this matchup, trying to play as many taunts as he can very quickly, get Sulfuros Hand of Ragnaros, and deal as much damage as he can with his board, because the damage output for the taunt minions is quite good. You have 5 mana 3/6, 2 attack minions, 5 attack from the Bloodhoof Brave. Damage output is pretty decent. But Argentina, for Payensei, they have Frost Nova, they have Blizzard, they have Doomsayer. They're going to be freezing and trying to stall out this game as much as possible. It's going to be hard for Naviud to actually close out this game.
Yeah, and one thing to point out about the nature of these taunt minions is that generally they're statted in a manner that's kind of inefficiently skewed towards health. So it's very difficult to remove them. And, as a mage, traditionally Blizzard, Flame Strike might be spells you would use to clear a board, and that's going to work against Hunter, that's going to work against Sue, but I don't really think that's going to work against these big taunts. And in fact, my experience against this lineup has taught me, once those minions come down, you pretty much have Frost Nova Doomsayer. And that's all you have to try to empty out that board.
Well, Dirty Rat pulling out the Cold Light Oracle from Argentina. That's important. It's going to deny Payensei some draws that he really could have used very desperately. No other form of draw in his hand except for the Arcanologist, which will pull a secret that he already has both Ice Barrier and Block in play. He won't be able to play that secret at that time.
Yeah, I want to point out a combo here. Now, this is not online yet, and it may not necessarily be a big factor in this match, but for Quest Warrior in general, we see Primordial Drake and Sleep with the Fishes in the hand of Naviud. This has become one of the most brutal combos, I think, for this deck to unleash kind of on mid-range decks, is the ability to play the Primordial Drake. Comes out, does 2 damage to all enemy minions, and then it's going to be comboed with Sleep with the Fishes, which does 3 damage to all injured minions. So that's just a huge board sweep right there. And I believe Primordial Drake is actually 2 damage to all minions. Apologies.
Yes.
So, yeah, you risk hurting your own minions, but most of the time, you're either playing fewer minions as the Quest Warrior player, or you're playing minions that have just a lot of health anyway.
Yeah, ideally as the Quest Warrior, your best matchups are against something like Zoo, for instance. You're very, very favored against Zoo because you have all of these taunt minions and then efficient removal sources. Brawl, Ravaging Ghoul, Whirlwind, and then, of course, Sleep with the Fishes and Primordial Drake. You have the ability to remove lots of low health minions very easily and very efficiently. Against a control mage and a combo mage like the one that Argentina is playing, those removal sources are actually just going to clog up your hand quite a bit. The board is getting very full for Naviud, and these removal spells and removal minions aren't going to do much.
Yeah, so even though the deck types have certainly changed in Journey to Ungoro, if you're someone who's always enjoyed Control Warrior, it's kind of like that James Franco gif. It's, it's different, but the same. It's one of those things where
10 minutes in, James Franco's on the table.
The
Hearthstone Global Game.
I was gonna say we're doing it big here, but that's one of the major things that kind of stays the same with Control Warrior is that consistent effort to remove the board. You're going forward, you're just trying to clear out the board and get to your late game. The major difference to me is that late game comes a lot sooner now.
Yeah, when, before in Hyper Removal Control Warrior with at least the Starseeker as finisher, it would often go to Fatigue. In this case, you can get Sulfuros Hand of Ragnaros by turn 8, turn 9, depending on what taunt minions you're playing, with the Stonehill Defender, Tar Creeper being an option, Dirty Rat, of course. You can actually have access to your finisher very quickly.
Yeah, so taking a look here, Naviute has built up a fairly intimidating board, and we see Pansay does have 2 Doomsayers. He has 2 Doomsayers, and he has the Blizzard, so as of next turn, he could be looking to slam that Doomsayer and Blizzard and see if it holds and clears the board. You know, unfortunate for him, this lineup, this board, is not really great for Blizzard.
No, it's not exactly what he was hoping for, but I think it is going to be good enough. There is the potential for Naviute to actually overdraw with the Acolyte of Pains in play. I don't think that will certainly be the case now as Pansay has drawn the Frost Nova as well. But this is certainly playing into Argentina's plan of simply stall. They need this game to go as long as it can. If they draw the cards that they need, they win the game.
Yep.
They just have to draw them.
Yeah, we see both copies of Molten Reflection in hand now. We see a Blizzard, we see a Frost Nova. So, you know, there are 2 tools to freeze the board out at least for 2 more turns, but Naviute is getting very, very close to completing the quest. And once that comes online, realizing that, you know, you're not going to win this game going long, I think you just jam Sulfuras and you're just hero power, hero power, hero power every single turn. You know, there are some games when you're playing against aggressive decks where you're thinking, maybe I don't equip it because I want the ability to armor up every turn. But, you know, against the Mage, doesn't matter. Infinite Fireballs is going to kill you, so let's just equip that Mace. Let's go.
Absolutely. The Sulfuras Hand of Ragnaros, one of my favorite quest rewards. I think it just adds so much flavor to Control Warrior decks in general. And here we are going to see the Blizzard come out for Pansay. Much more difficult to get use of than the Frost Nova. You can easily slot Frost Nova in on a turn when you would like to do something else. With Blizzard, it is much harder. And that is going to be an overdraw for Naviute. Bloodhoof Brave. Not nearly the worst thing that he could have burned in this case.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know that there necessarily is a worse thing in this deck to mill. You know, the quest would pretty much be it, and you start with it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, okay, well, you're down a taunt. Like, it's not necessarily like he has any big minions that are necessarily like the super important minions for him to win the game. He's not facing down a board. You know, there are times where if you'd milled like a Primordial Drake, you'd be like, well, sky's falling. This is terrible. But in this scenario, I mean, realistically, you milled him a card. Good job.
Good for you. Well, that is very true. Certainly Doomsayer is something that you need to be aware of as the Control Warrior player. There is an Execute and a Shield Slam in hand for Naviute, so he's not going to have any trouble removing those Doomsayers trying to protect his board through another freeze. Antonidas picked up for Pansay in Argentina. That's just one step closer to being able to finish this game.
Yeah, but the road is certainly long. I don't necessarily know exactly where we are. We see, okay, it's actually 2 of 6 spells played that were not originally in his deck. You know, there's still a lot of cards left to draw, so this is kind of one of those situations for Pansay where you're looking down, you're thinking, okay, I just got to get to the end of the game, but how do I actually do this? And, you know, Frost Nova double Doomsayer may feel like something he has to do if he actually does want to clear this board, because, again, to your point, Execute, Shield Slam has become very common in this deck, so do you actually just commit to the double Doomsayer line here?
I mean, I think at this point, you're assuming that your opponent has some form of reload in hand. So maybe clearing the board isn't nearly as important as just making it more difficult for them to deal damage. So a freeze on its own is probably good enough. If Pansay really feels the pressure to clear this board, double Doomsayer is an option. I don't know that clearing the board would even help him all that much, though.
Yeah, we see he decides to just go with the Frost Nova. You know, what he really needs to get more of is Cycle. You know, he needs to get maybe a Kabbalist Tome here. He needs to get, I think he's only used 1 Primordial Glyph thus far. So those are the kind of things he needs to be getting. And unfortunately, he's sitting on Doomsayers, which he knows probably will not resolve. And he's sitting on combo pieces.
Well, and a lot of these issues are actually stemming from that early Dirty Rat that Naviute played that pulled the Cold Light Oracle from Pansay's hand. That would have been 2 cards deeper into his deck. Could have picked up a Loot Hoarder, an Acolyte of Pain, or even just another combo piece. So losing that early on really does hurt Pansay's reach and just gives Naviute and the Australian team all that much more time to be able to complete their quest.
Okay, so the Dirty Rat comes down there. That puts Naviute at 6 out of 7 taunts. But the Doomsayer does come down, which, you know, as we talked about, it's pretty much just, you know, sit there and, like, marvel at all of your different ways to kill the Doomsayer. Like, how do I feel like this Doomsayer should die? Shield Slam, ultimately, you know, the smartest way to go about it, but that's going to be a completed Fire Plume's Heart for Naviute, and now he has Sulfuras in hand.
That means that if Naviute so chooses next turn, he can forego the armor up hero power and start to deal 8 damage to a random enemy, which against a combo mage build, that random enemy is almost always just the face.
Okay, so third copy of Molten Reflection, which is really not going to be useful, and double Vaporize. This is starting to feel a little bit like poker looking at this hand. He's got a full house there, but...
That is a terrible Kabbalist Tome for Pei-Ensei. He was looking definitely for some cheaper spells or some more board freezes that he could play, but Naviute is applying quite a bit of pressure, and Pei-Ensei is out of freeze.
Yeah, and it's important to note, now, when you do play a secret that you got from Kabbalist Tome or Primordial Glyph, it does actually show your opponent that is something that was not originally in your deck. Even if, you can make that read. It's the most obvious read in the world because it's the far 3 cards on the right. But in case you couldn't, you know that is not one of the ice blocks or ice barriers that are in the deck initially. So you can probably be safe in assuming it's probably not one of those cards. Yeah, a chance it might be because it's a random spell, but the odds are suddenly way greater that it's something else.
Yeah, and in this case, I don't think any of those other things that it could be are really too impactful for Naviute. So he's going to go ahead and attack in with the weakest minion. Rightfully so to play around Vaporize. Finds out it is Vaporize, and now he has exactly the read on what Pei-Ensei is working with. He hasn't seen any cycle, so likely he knows his hand is bogged down with combo pieces and one extra secret that he saw off of the Arcanologist.
Yeah, it's a rough place for Pei-Ensei to be right now, and it really, to your point earlier, the Cold Light Oracle being brought out by the Dirty Rat, kind of stymieing the cycle, which that's what this deck needs to do. It just needs to keep cycling. I believe AP Drops version, the one I've been playing lately, the Mage that has the Giants, actually has a little bit more cycle because that's so much what the deck needs to be doing to just get to the end of the game. But yeah, we see Naviute here just going to get a last bit of armor in, say goodbye to his hero power, and then it looks like he's going to go ahead and equip Sulfuras. Yep.
Sulfuras is a 4 attack, 2 durability weapon, so there's 8 extra damage just coming from the weapon itself. Very thematic indeed. And now launching those rag shots at face, smartly putting Pei-Ensei down to 1 and proccing the ice block.
Yeah, so now Pei-Ensei does have that second ice block, so he will be safe for this next turn, but this kind of feels like the old escalator to nowhere scenario. You can survive another turn, but you're nowhere near the end of your deck. You have 3 out of 6 other quests now, 4 out of 6 with this Vaporize, but yeah, you're just really not going anywhere fast.
Yeah, just Naviute got out of the gate running, and Pei-Ensei had a bit of a slower start.
Yeah, this is, we talked about the fact that there was an aura of inevitability to both of these decks. Just the fact is, in general, Taunt Warrior is going to get to the end game much, much faster than this Time Warp Mage is.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And now, unfortunately, Pei-Ensei has no way to lock down the board, Naviute's face, and the hero power at the same time. He is out of ice blocks, and there's a Sorcerer's Apprentice. Is that actually just game, Rob?
No, it can't be.
Well, no.
Wait, no, because he has a Frostbolt. Okay, so he will be actually able to activate the Time Warp because he'll have 1 mana left.
The coin is the last spell, I believe. Well,
wow.
I'll be damned.
Watch Naviute's face. He's going to go through a range of emotions here.
Antonidas Frostbolt comes down, and that's actually just going to be game.
Yeah, wow. Great miss from us. That just came in all of a sudden.
The Sorcerer's Apprentice came off the top for Pei-Ensei. He needed exactly that draw to be able to activate Molten Reflections. Naviute knows exactly what's up, and that is going to be a I guess technically 2-turn kill with Open the Way Gate.
Third Molten Reflection turns out to be pretty good there. So the third Molten Reflection allowed him to actually speed up his clock a fair bit there. And yeah, with that Sorcerer's Apprentice off the top, that's got to feel like it was just robbed from Naviute. Naviute, that was a disgust concede where I'm from.
That was a concede that you don't want to have to go ahead and bottom right that one. But unfortunately, there's just nothing you can do. When the combo mage encompasses all the pieces together, it is just game over. So Pei-Ensei was on the edge. He was almost beaten by Naviute, but picks up the Sorcerer's Apprentice off the top and closes out game number 1. That was, unfortunately, how a lot of the Taunt Warrior versus Combo Mage games feel to me. It feels like if you just had 1 more turn most of the time, you could win the game. And unfortunately, Navi didn't have that extra turn.
Yeah, you have to realize Pei-Ensei, statistically, was very fortunate in getting that Sorcerer's Apprentice just at that moment. You know, as we were talking about, he was basically living off the top of his deck. He wasn't cycling heavily, so worked out for him. And yeah, was just barely able to clutch out that win. So congratulations to Pansay. Congratulations to Argentina for getting on the board. The next match is going to be Nalguidan taking on Ender.
It's going to be the Warrior for Nalguidan and then the Druid for Ender. Of course, Warrior, Pirate, and Quest are really your only two viable choices that we've seen emerge thus far. Druid, however, has a couple different builds. There is a straight ramp version that runs very large minions. It doesn't usually run Jungle Giants, the Quest, because it's just a little bit slow, even with all those big minions. And then my real standout of Journey to Ungoro has been Aggro Druid, using Living Mana, Vicious Fledgling, all of the cheap Druid buff spells. It has been incredibly strong.
Yeah, obviously we're still very early on in the Journey to Ungoro meta, but Aggro Druid has definitely carved out a role to let you know that 3 to 4 weeks from now, that's going to be one of those decks that you don't want to run into when people are like, I'm done experimenting, I'm just trying to rank up. So yeah, I completely agree. That is a very fearsome deck thus far, and using a lot of cards that, you know, you wouldn't really necessarily be surprised to see. Mark of the Lotus, Power of the Wild. Now Living Mana is an interesting one, and I do hope we get to see that one.
Yeah, I really enjoy Living Mana. It takes all of your mana crystals, turns them into 2/2 treants, and the death rattle is return the mana crystal to you. So it's a really fantastic card when combined with Savage Roar and other buffs. It's just going to be interesting to see if that actually is the Druid deck of choice for Australia.
Yeah, and there are a lot of interesting interactions with how that card actually works in terms of like, okay, do I even want to clear these trees? Because of if you clear them on your opponent's turn, they get the mana crystals back, and then next turn, when their turn begins, they'll have access to that mana. Whereas if you don't, it's one of those things where as they pop them on their turn, there's a lot of interesting points of intersection in how you deal with the Living Mana treants it summons. And one of the things I actually completely forgot was the fact that, you know, hey, their mana crystals have been turned into trees. So they start at 1 mana on the next turn. Take a look at the player biographies here. Nalguidan, you know, no stranger. This is a man where if you were to say, okay, who's someone who's one of the most storied Open Cup warriors, period? Nalguidan is definitely in the conversation. I went looking up more information on him. His Twitch page is a never-ending scroll down the Open Cups he has either won or, you know, finished top 4 in.
Yeah, he's had incredible success on ladder and with Open Cups, actually the top HCT point earner in Argentina and a really fantastic streamer as well for the South American community. And then Ender placed top 8 in all 3 of the Australia-New Zealand preliminaries in 2016, 31 HCT points, which is a really impressive total, and top 100 legend 6 times. So we should not write Ender out of this match just yet.
No, absolutely, but I gotta think, coming up against Nalguidan in this one, this is a tall task. Nalguidan is somebody who's proven, and you know, you run into him on the Americas region ladder a fair bit, and he is really, really good at the game. Like, I don't want to, it's hard for me to say that because it's Hearthstone. I can't be like, oh, you know, his APM is just 6 million, but this guy is really freakishly good at the game, and he's kind of waiting for that breakout performance, which is absolutely what Hearthstone Global Games could be for him as well as Argentina.
Yeah, he's one of those ladder gods that you run into quite a bit, and the name just immediately strikes fear into your heart, even though you haven't seen them have, you know, fantastic tournament success in anything other than community cups. He's very much reminiscent of how Muzzy was for a very long time.
Yep.
It was a name that you would see on ladder, and you would immediately know, this is going to be a tough game for me to win.
Yeah, now, to Ender's credit, he was in essentially all of the HCT preliminaries last year for Australia, New Zealand, so he's someone who's been competing a lot. He also goes out to those Open Cups, so he's no slouch. It's just, I kind of wonder how he's going to fare. Now, he's running Druid. We talked a little bit how Druid has the slower, more ramp-oriented, using Giant Anaconda, using both Deathwing, so there are options for him. Probably going to run into, I assume, Quest Warrior. Quest Warrior has, I think, edged out Pirate Warrior successfully as the more popular variant right now.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. Pirate Warrior, okay, thank goodness, depending on who you're asking and who you're talking to, what their opinions are on the subject. I really enjoy Quest Warrior. Certainly Pirate Warrior is still very strong. Losing Sir Finley Murgleton and the ability to steady shot and life tap, I believe, has hurt the deck as a whole, but it's still very viable. We've actually seen some of the versions running Bittertide Hydra, so that's found its way in. It does run some Ungoro cards. It's still very strong, but Quest Warrior, I think, is just one of the best decks to come out of Journey to Ungoro, period.
Yeah, we also see Ravasaur run was kind of making a little bit of an appearance in Pirate Warrior, and another big thing worth mentioning is Galoka Crawler.
Yes.
That has been something that has just been teched into decks because so many people were running into Pirate Warrior prior to set rotation that a lot of people in that 2 slot are just feeling like, okay, you know what? I'm going to play the Crawler. It's a 2-mana 2/3. End of the world, it's, a Gator. It's a Crocolisk. But, it can also just win me the game against Pirate Warrior, where you just insta-jib a 3/4, suddenly have your own 3/4. So, yeah, it just feels safer overall to play against the Pirate Warrior than to try to counter the Taunt Warrior, which is Black Knight. Like, Black Knight's a great card, don't get me wrong, but, it's a heavy mana investment. You might not necessarily get a taunt that matches that investment you're putting in. So I feel like right now, Quest Warrior is just absolutely the safer deck to play.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Galaka Crawler, we've seen in some Hunter decks because it is a beast. It does fit in quite well there. And even some Pirate Warriors have been running it because, Nazos first made on 1 on turn 2. Yeah, maybe you don't care about that 1/1 body and you'd rather have a 3/4. So that's where we're seeing the Galaka Crawler most prominently. But this is going to be a Quest Warrior for Nalgwidan. And Ender, it does look like he's playing a Ramp Druid deck.
Yeah, I spoke to Nalgwidan a little bit today on Twitter, and we were having a back and forth. And I was wondering, is there anything you want to tell the Argentinian community out there watching, who are out there, cheering for you, and not just you, but the entire Argentinian team? And he's very short. He was just like, yeah, we're going to win. He and the rest of the Argentinian team feeling extremely confident, not just about this particular matchup, but this tournament in general. They really feel like it's going to be kind of a coming out party for Argentina in general on the Hearthstone competitive world stage.
Well, if you look at the players on the Argentinian team, it is 4 very strong names. Nalgwidan, Snail, Pei and Sei, of course, all really big figureheads in the South American community. And then Ildami, we can't forget about. I would say he is the lesser known of the 4, but a great player in his own right, of course. So this really could be the time where Argentina puts itself on the Hearthstone Global Games map.
All right, so we see here Australia. It is going to be Ender bringing out what feels safe to say is definitely that ramp, slow style of Taunt Druid, and, taunts over on Nalgwidan's side, so this is basically my worst nightmare. There's just a lot of taunts going on here. I don't like any of this. I wish they'd stop. Just start playing some minions.
So convinced the taunt is cheating, Rob.
I mean, look.
I would argue, it's very fair.
I really want to be friends with you, Cora, so I don't know that I can continue to
We do have to be working together for quite a few more weeks.
That's true.
That's fine. I won't push this time.
But yeah, it does at least feel good that Rexard's back in the tavern. I think there was a while where he was doing that whole sad holiday thing where he was looking in at the happy family, and he was out in the snow, and he's like, Bible thump, can I please come in the tavern, Bible thump. But, he's back in force, and we're probably going to see some Hunter antics for the rest of the night. But looking at Ender's hand, we see Jade Blossom, so this has very clearly got some degree of Jade components too, because I don't think you necessarily just run Jade Blossom for the ramp.
Well, I'm going to surprise you, Rob. You do.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen this version.
A lot of the versions of this deck are strictly just running 1 copy of Jade Blossom for the ramp. The ramp is so incredibly important. It is a ramp druid that is heavier than, I would say, any other ramp druid we have ever seen. So the 1/1 is negligible.
Sure.
You just need a 3-mana, give me an extra mana crystal. That's what Jade Blossom is in here for.
That's awesome. I haven't seen it just yet, but yeah, I mean, you talk about heavy decks. Sagat the Slitherer is about as heavy. That's you basically saying, I'm not starting my day until like 2 p.m. Like, don't wake me up.
I had a long night, night before. I'm going to be waking up pretty late.
Well, we see Ender thinking over this turn. Now, he could go for the Barnes. I'm really curious to see what is in his deck that really benefits from Barnes, because, again, we do not have the list, but he's going to go ahead and just play it safe, bring out the Mire Keeper, and, yeah, he's well on his way to the late game already.
Yeah, so Wild Growth, Jade Blossom, Mire Keeper, Nourish, and Innervate are going to be your sources of cheating your mana curve in this deck. On your topic of things that benefit from Barnes, Deathwing Dragonlord and Giant Anaconda are going to be the 2 main cards that you're going to want to pull. Ysera as well, you're seeing in some of these builds. That will likely die, but you get a dream card off of it, so pretty good value at the time. And here, not the best choices off of Stonehill Defender for Nalgwidan. Likely he was looking for something to play on turn 4, and Cyclopean Horror is just probably the most underwhelming 4-mana taunt in the game, unless you count Faceless Shambler if you don't have other large minions on board.
I mean, you could always take Iron for a Grizzly. I mean, look, that's a 3-mana bear with taunt. It's scary looking. Cyclopean Horror really not that scary looking.
No, kind of goofy looking.
Yeah, absolutely. I am curious to see now if in Ender's deck we'll see Yasiraj. Usually when you're looking at late game Barn antics, there was a Hunter deck that, Raven just swore up and down was amazing, which, it's just Ragnaros, who's this Yasiraj. Obviously Ragnaros is gone to the Hall of Fame now. He's retired. You can find him in Wild chilling on a porch for retired cards, but Yasuo is still out there doing the good business of summoning giant minions.
It's very possible that it is in this deck. Going to be interesting to see just how heavy Ender has decided to build his list. Bog Creeper coming out of Barnes. Not really going to do too much here, but giving Nalguidon some information maybe on what is in Ender's list. And then Earthen Scales coming into hand. This is also a fantastic card out of Journey to Ungoro. Gives a minion +1/+1, and then gives your hero armor equal to the attack of that minion after it's buffed. So this is sort of replacing Feral Rage, actually, because a lot of times you can get 6, 7, 8 armor plus a buff on a minion for 3 mana less.
Yeah, and it's really impressive that Earthen Scales is kind of finding a home in these decks already, because traditionally what you see is, spells that just give health or health equivalent aren't necessarily super valued because they don't necessarily deal with the board state, they don't do damage to the opponent's face or in the game, so it's impressive that Earthen Scales is kind of going that distance.
Yeah, it's been a really, I would say, solid inclusion into this build. Usually only 1 copy, but I suppose that 2 wouldn't be bad either.
Sure.
And Australia's hand is certainly starting to round out. Curator pulling the Giant Anaconda, which is the beast, and then 1 copy of the Primordial Drake. And as you can see, Deathwing Dragonlord, Giant Anaconda, 7 mana, 5/3, Death Rattle, summon a minion from your hand with 5 or more attack. So that right now is going to be Sagat the Slitherer and Deathwing Dragonlord.
Yeah, so it's worth pointing out that against Warrior, a lot of classes, if you were to just put out Deathwing Dragonlord, it was just to pull out 2 Drakes after dying. You're like, okay, well, I still have this massive board, like, good luck. But obviously, whenever you're playing against Warrior, Brawl has to be in your mind as far as how many resources you want committed to the board. Ender believes this is still fine. I'm going to play down the Giant Anaconda. Whatever happens, happens. But yeah, it's going to be Deathwing Dragonlord or Sagat the Slitherer. And Primordial Drake having 4 attack might not necessarily seem that impressive, but in a deck like this, that's actually a huge upside. You can have a little bit more control over what Giant Anaconda brings out.
The difference between the 4 and the 4 attack minions and 5 or more is absolutely something that Ender wants to keep in mind here. And Primordial Drakes and Ysera are really going to be your 4 attack minions. Of course, the Anaconda can't pull those. So Brawl, definitely something that he wants to keep on his mind, but in the same vein, Nalguidon has 4 cards in hand. What are the odds that one of those is a hard removal for Deathwing Dragonlord if it gets pulled from the Anaconda, and then a second one needs to be Brawl?
I mean, that's a fair point. It's definitely worthy of consideration, but it's always one of those things where you want to be considering, like, okay, 4 cards, to your point, what are the odds that he has the perfect combination of cards in sequence that do all these different things? But it's still something you want to play around. It's something you want to be considerate of. So understand Ender kind of taking his time with these turns and, looking at his hand, nothing really stands out to me. I mean, he can Primordial Drake, and then it will destroy the Anaconda, assuming the Anaconda hits the armor. Yeah, oh, he's going to do it. Let's see what he gets. Okay. And I think Sagat the Slitherer is actually just better.
Sagat is just great when you don't have to play him from hand.
Yeah.
5/9 Taunt, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, is a fantastic card. He's just always been too slow to be able to play in pretty much every deck. So now that he's starting to have some time to shine, I think is fantastic. And of course, Ender's going into turn 10, so Deathwing Dragonlord can just come down on the following turn if he wants to.
Yeah, I love everything you just said about Sagat the Slitherer, and this is really the sort of deck where he's absolutely going to prosper. I think even as the meta kind of starts to crystallize, in the coming months here for Journey to Ungoro, I think Sagat has finally found a home for the foreseeable future with a card like Giant Anaconda.
Yeah, you would think that he might be able to fit in Taunt Warrior. Fortunately, he's still a little slow, even for a deck that the entire goal is to play Taunt minions.
Sagat,
so
it's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's my quest.
It's not that... Yeah, Sagat just... It's one of those cards, too, where...
The proverbial stood-up date. The proverbial broken up with girlfriend. Poor Sagat. He's had such a rough road to get here.
It's okay, Sagat. We love you, and so does Malfurion now. So we're going to see the Execute come down on the Primordial Drake. So, you get rid of 1 Giant Taunt, but yeah, something tells me Sagat's going to be sticking around for a bit.
He is a nuisance to get rid of once he hits the board. And Nourish coming into Ender's hand, going to be used for quite a bit of draw later on, 3 cards.
Yep. Cora, do you slam Deathwing Dragonlord here?
You've only got 2 cards in the board, right?
Yeah. This is not a good brawl. I say you just, let's get that giant 12 touch. Let's channel our Brian Kibler. We're going. Put on your dragon onesie.
Man, that's what I try to do in my everyday life.
Yeah. Trying to find a Pomeranian right now.
You on that Pom plan?
I've been looking at a bunch of different dogs.
I mean, it's a bad board to brawl. This is essentially like having an Execute or a Shield Slam.
Yeah.
If you actually get to kill the Deathwing Dragon Lord, and if you don't, well, there's a 12-12. He's sticking around, so...
It is worth noting now that Sagoth can be cleared with Sleep with the Fishes and the Ghoul combo, so that's something. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and see, I think Sleep with the Fishes come out here, and Alguidon's just going to go for the full clear. Hope there's no second Primordial Drake, no Ysera in hand. Gonna get the bad news, although admittedly tolerable bad news.
This is a lot more manageable for Alguidon to deal with. So yeah, Brawl would have been terrible there. Ender rightly making sure to keep his board small but strong. So great play by him there. And
that
I think
sounds
a lot
like a
of
workout
that,
regimen. Keep your board small but strong.
A lot of it just coming out of the fact that Sagoth was pulled from the Anaconda instead of Deathwing Dragonlord.
Yeah. All right, so we see, Alguidon did survive Deathwing the Dragonlord, certainly a feat, but at this point he's really running low on resources, and Ender is not. He's just going to go, okay, well, I'm going to put some reasonable mid-range minions on the board. I'm going to buff him a little bit, gain some armor myself, and I'm just going to go and make you have answers.
You could sort of play into Brawl a little bit here, too. If Nalguidon were to play Brawl here, it wouldn't be too high value. That's only 2 minions, essentially, on Ender's board. And then Ender would know that he would be able to pretty much play every minion that he were to draw from here without having to worry too much about it being removed, except...
Deathwing.
Well, there's Deathwing OG.
This is, quite frankly, the best thing about this meta. There are so many Deathwings just roaming around. It's like, I'm not even like a big dragon guy. I think back in the day when we were looking at like Blackrock Mountain, I'm like, cool, whatever, dragons. But like, this is certainly a great time to be either Deathwing. I mean, it's you and then other you. Deathwings.
I mean, just look at the meta a week ago to the meta now. Patches the Pirate was the most prominently played legendary, and now we're seeing Deathwings. We're also seeing Savannah Highmane, which Nalguidon does not look excited about.
Nalguidon, man, put your arms down. We don't want to see that stuff. Goodness. But yeah, he's now facing down. I'm just saying, this is a family show. We don't need to see this stuff. It's our own global game.
When did we dictate this was a family show?
Behave.
Naviute was on stream, Rob. Come on.
He's wearing a shirt. Come on. We do see, though, that Ender has that Highmane, and that's going to be enough for Nalguidon. He's like, fire everything, throw out the brawls, and he can combo it with the Dire Horn Hatchling. Ooh.
Savannah Highmane.
It's the King of Beasts.
It's the equivalent of a 4-attack minion up against a priest for Control Warrior. It has just been the Warrior Slayer for so long. And of course, I'm sure you've heard the old adage, if Savannah Highmane hits face, you win the game.
Yeah, I think it's so well known. It's like an anime is being made around it. Like once Savannah Highmane hits you, once you die. It's like the Ring, right? You have 7 days to live. You have like 3 turns to live.
Like Armor Smith always wins brawls.
Yep.
Savannah Highmane hits you in the face, you die.
That's an old one, man. I don't think Armor Smith has been involved in a brawl in like a year and a half.
Since Kit Kats has been done playing Hearthstone, yeah.
Kit Kats
just
come
about
back.
as long.
Save us. Yeah, we see though, Savannah Highmane did live, is going to continue to get value, and that's really the biggest thing here. Is it's going to continue to demand more resources, which is going to be really problematic for Nalguidon. And now, if that Deathwing does come down, I believe Mulch was in the Grand Crusade or the Grand Tournament, right?
Yeah, Mulch has rotated out, but more importantly, that quest has been completed for Nalguidon. Sulfuros in hand, meaning that yes, Ender has very large minions in hand, but now Nalguidon is going to be dealing 8 damage per turn.
That is certainly something to be considered of. I love playing Ysera here. You're going to trade out. You're going to deal with the Primordial Drake, and Ysera can take a beating. She's going to resist the Die Insect and still live if she gets hit, and start generating you continued resources. And now I want to point out the dynamic of double Deathwing here. Each player has a Deathwing in hand, but they don't want to play it because they have to sacrifice so much to play it. Like, that's game if that Deathwing gets cleared. So these Deathwings are just going to sit there, just basically across the lines of scrimmage, staring at each other like, no, you come out. No, you come out.
It's Dragon Chicken, essentially.
Dragon Chicken.
Deathwing is your absolute last resort. He is like, I guess a failsafe, you could say. He's like, if everybody's going down and I got to keep the information safe, blow up the place.
No, he's the big red button.
That's what Deathwing is. He's the big red button in each of these decks. Neither of these players want to play him, but they have him just in case.
Neither player wants to get to the Deathwing option. That's basically something you don't want. Now, Ender has the upside of if he does run second Giant Anaconda, that is a way that the Deathwing can come out, and you get to cheat out a 12-12 without, destroying everything on the board and sacrificing your hand.
8 damage, really just burning out that hyena that was left over from the Savannah Highmane. Not the target that Nalguidan wanted to see it go on. He would have much rather had the Bog Creeper get killed that way and be able to save some damage to his face. But unfortunately, Ragnaros, he may seem like he hits the target that you don't want him to hit every time. Sometimes he does.
I mean, still, throw that Savannah Highmane a party, like a celebration, get him a promotion. He did so much work there. He killed a Direhorn hatchling. His hyenas were left up to soak up Ragnaros hits that came off a Moonglade portal. That's the Savannah Highmane we all deserve in our lives.
It's the Savannah Highmane we all know and seems like you love. Some other people may have, different opinions, but Rexar was out of the meta for so long that it's a little refreshing to see some Savannah Highmane, just not when it's being played in Druid.
People are like, oh yeah, turn 6, I want that Savannah Highmane. I'm like, 6, man, you're going slow. Get it out on 5. Where's your coin? Go.
Wild Growth, Innervate Moonglade Portal. Get it on 4.
I mean, Rexar's not that powerful. All right, we're going to see another Dream coming out. So there's a Dream and a Laughing Sister, and, there's nothing aside from that Deathwing that can deal with Ysera. But again, Nalguidan knows that if he pulls a trigger here, he's walking into what some would say is a trap.
Well, does he know that for sure? Like you said before, Mult rotated out.
Sure.
Naturalize is not being played in any of these lists. If Deathwing comes down, like maybe Nalguidan is thinking there's a chance it sticks, and really the only way that Ender can actually deal with it here is, well, deciding to dream it back and putting it back in Nalguidan's hand or their own Deathwing.
Yeah, and I see where you're coming from, but I just think at that point, if you're playing down the Deathwing, I mean, there's still a chance here that you can kind of try to attrition out with the Rag hero power. That said, Ender has very intelligently crafted this board. It's a 4-12 and a 7-9, so it's going to require a little bit of extra love to get the job done. But yeah, I still like trying to fiddle with the Ragnaros hero power, maybe play down some minions, see what you can do, see if you can win this over time. But no, there it is. There is Deathwing, the gold Deathwing, no less. Absolutely beautiful. And okay, so do you just dream it back?
Well, I mean, if you dream it back, that's essentially
but you could.
Admitting defeat on another turn when it's going to come down. But in this case, for Ender, you can dream it back and play your own Giant Anaconda this turn.
Yep.
And then when Deathwing comes out, well, your own Deathwing's hitting the board in response, but you get to attack first.
Yeah, the problem here, though, is that if the Die Insect hero power or the weapon hits the Giant Anaconda and brings out your Deathwing, and then they play their Deathwing.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't be able to hero power and play Deathwing on the same turn.
All right, that's fair.
And then
You could swing, though.
They could swing. They could swing.
What?
And I think that's really what Ender is considering here. Does he want to commit anything to this board?
Yeah, I don't think you do. In fact, looking back at the Dream play, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, this was cool, and Rob definitely shouted, we should do it. But that's not a way you should live your life, and what did we actually accomplish?
I mean, it's tough to say. Ender is at a very safe life total.
I like this. The 1/1 Jade Golem is actually going to kind of be big here because it's another target if Deathwing doesn't come down for the Rag hero power.
It's just a nuisance.
Just an absolute problem. Well, do we play second Deathwing? Well, first Deathwing. Do we play it a second time?
First Deathwing, second time. I think we can hold off here. Bloodhoof Brave, try to kill off this board the old-fashioned way with, 8 damage hero powers.
All right, Yasiraj there. So we are definitely not playing Yasiraj onto the board, knowing that our opponent has Deathwing. Ender likes to live dangerously. I respect that. That's a good way to live your life. But that is a one-way ticket to pretty much, I would have to imagine, losing the game.
It's one-way ticket to Sad Town. I don't even think that would lose Ender the game, though, because it gets to Deathwing in response, and, well, then Argentina's at 20 health. Maybe that would still be able to carry, but it is definitely a moral loss. You don't want to just give up your Yasiraj for free. I don't see any reason why you would, but in the same vein, you kind of do have to draw out their Deathwing again. It's like baiting a brawl. You need to bait this Deathwing so you can kill it and then extend onto the board safely again.
Your reasoning has overcome my internal panic of tossing a Yasiraj onto a board with a Deathwing in hand. So
like,
yeah, I'm on that play.
Is Yasiraj valuable enough as just Deathwing bait here? I don't know.
Well, it doesn't seem like Ender thinks so. Goes ahead and plays down the Giant Anaconda. Okay, so let me walk through this one just to make sure I'm clear. You swing with the Giant Anaconda. Or you swing with
into the Giant Anaconda.
Swing into the Giant Anaconda, Sulfuras, and then you wait for Deathwing. Well, I guess if Yasiraj comes down and you play your Deathwing, it's just game. It's pretty much turn 10 paces, walk, pistols at this point.
I don't think that there's anything that Nalguidan could draw that would kill the Deathwing, but...
All right, there you go.
So much power incarnate.
That's a lot of power incarnate, admittedly. Well, and this is just... this is like Godzilla versus Gojira at this point. Just giant titans out on the board fighting, but... All right, let's... Wait, are we just out of minions?
I guess he is.
Wow.
Yasiraj didn't pull anything, meaning that Ender just doesn't have any minions left in deck. Okay, that actually changes things quite a bit.
Yeah, because at this point, once Yasiraj is gone, you're just dying to that hero power.
I mean, Nalguidan is at 13 health. Australia and Ender certainly a very higher health total, but if Ender can't put on any pressure with minions for the rest of the game, Nalguidan will just win.
I really want to go back, if we get the chance, and kind of look at the turn where we dreamed the Deathwing. Was that, because it happened so quickly. I think that's one of those things where that was a turn that probably, and we saw, after he did it, he kind of paused. He's like, wait a minute, what was I doing? Okay,
Moonglade Portal will give a 6 mana cost minion, but Ender wrathed for 1, meaning that he committed to a swipe this turn, and is now in fatigue.
I mean, I don't know what you get off a Moonglade Portal that beats 8 damage turn.
Savannah Jaime.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Brawl's a dead draw for Nalguidan, but this game absolutely was...
It was a confusing one, to be honest. Like I said, I really want to go back after the fact. I'm going to watch the VODs. And, you know, then have my own opinion be wrong and ask Soddle what I should have seen.
Soddle, what should he have done here?
Soddle, you're a smart guy. What was going on here?
I mean, Ender's reasoning makes sense. He had no other way to kill the Deathwing other than his own Deathwing, but the rest of his hand was still incredibly valuable, so he didn't want to do that. But if you look at just the way that this game is played out, Ender had drawn so many more cards with Nourish that he was naturally going to fatigue before Nalguidan.
Yeah, I guess that was, you know, we just saw how far ahead Ender was, at least on the board and health total and having minions. But yeah, that was really decisive how that ended up working out. So we see a very blurry Nalguidan, but he's smiling. I think we can make out a smile there.
Looks happy nonetheless, and I certainly can understand why. That's Argentina up 2-0 over Australia. And that really was a matchup that, like you said, I would like to go back and watch that one again. It's not one that I've run into too many times as the Quest Warrior.
Right.
And certainly you do have that inevitability with Sulfuras. You have the ability to efficiently remove many large statted minions.
Yep.
But it seemed like Ender was playing very smartly around Brawl, around Shield Slam, around Execute. And unfortunately, he just drew all of his minions, and well, Argentina was able to clear them one by one.
I mean, we talked about the inevitability factor of the Ragnar's hero power, and you know, we've seen it in 2 games now. Unfortunately, Naviu got one a little bit robbed from him, but he was certainly pressing that. But looks like we're ready to get into match number 3 here. It is going to be Snail taking on Joan. Now, Joan is a guy I'm very fond of. He was my pick last year in the Summer Asia-Pacific Championship. He's a very, very smart guy, absolutely knows Hearthstone, but Australia is down 0-2. He's got to pretty much put the team on his back at this point.
He certainly does. But you know what? If it had to come down to anybody, clearly Australia agrees that it should come down to Joan. He is their ace, and it's going to be the Shaman taking on the Priest. Snail also was in the Hearthstone Championship Tour last year. Faltered a little bit. I think a lot of people's perception of Snail is not necessarily a confident one in his performance. He faltered a little bit in the limelight, and now I think he's back to say that he has improved and that he can really perform for Argentina.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that, Snail got in here based on community vote. So this is, it's one of those things where it makes for a cool story, but you could easily say, well, he didn't necessarily get in based on Hearthstone Championship Tour points. It wasn't necessarily based on merit. And I think Snail has a lot to prove here. As you said, in his time in the limelight, his play was a little bit shaky. There were a lot of points where critics kind of commented on his style, wondering, how could he have done this better? So really excited to see. This is an opportunity for Snail. This is not pressure on him. This is an opportunity to prove that he's, risen to the occasion by taking on one of the most competent players in Australia.
Absolutely. And as you can see, 2016 Hearthstone Championship Tour, America's Winter Championship competitor, top 3 at the 2016 Copa America Season 2 event. And he seems like your kind of guy. He really likes protein.
Yeah, it says Argentina has the best meat in the world, and anyone who disagrees doesn't have a clue.
I don't have a clue. I've never been there.
This 100% increases my reasons to visit Argentina. Go get some of that meat. Really excited about it. But we see here Joen competed, as I said, in the Hearthstone Championship Tour last year. His favorite class is Rogue, and he loves to master and try to innovate with combo decks. So that's very true to him. And he has the highest Hearthstone Championship point earner for Australia in the winter season for 2017. Obviously, how he got his spot as the anchor. So nothing too surprising there. Now, Joen is one of those guys, actually very similar to Snail, who's not really looking to make like a professional career out of Hearthstone. This is very much a hobby. He loves competing. He's a very competitive guy. But, he's not one of those people who want an open cup and he's like, I'm a professional Hearthstone player now. Put him a Twitter bio.
Yeah, well, Snail, I believe, is actually a computer science teacher, and was when he competed in the Hearthstone Championship Tour. And then I think you said something about Joen having a degree in business. So these are two guys who very much have lives separate from esports, and then also want to try and be as competitive as possible while fitting that other life in. So interesting to see if that affects their play at all. Certainly, it's only been a week since Ungoro came out. Does real life get in the way of playing Hearthstone, Rob?
I can safely say that every so often at my job, I'm expected to do things, which makes it really hard for me to just play Hearthstone.
But Rob, you work at Blizzard.
I know. It's a cruel situation that I'm sometimes required to actually work, but I do. We see here, though, it's going to be Shaman versus Priest, and I think a month ago, I would have looked at this and be like, well,
see you, Priest.
Bye, Anduin. Press F in chat. Bye, Anduin. But this is a little bit different here. We've got some very strong Priest cards, and we've got 2 archetypes that have kind of emerged. The quest, Awaken the Masters, hasn't necessarily fully picked up, but it has inspired people to play more of that kind of Death Rattle N'Zoth-oriented Priest. But there's also a Priest that a little bit different.
Yeah, there's also a Dragon Priest build, actually. Primordial Drake, coming into the Priest class, has reinvigorated Dragon Priest as class, even with the loss of all of the Blackrock Mountain adventure. So here it's looking like we're going to be seeing more of a Control Priest archetype, and then from Snail it is going to be an Elemental Shaman. This is definitely the most popular Shaman build that has emerged from Journey to Ungoro. Murloc Shaman, a lot of people were playing around with Megafin and the Shaman quest Unite the Murlocs. It's not the most consistent. Elemental Shaman has definitely proven to be the best choice.
Yeah, Shaman is actually the class I've messed around with most in this expansion, and I did play, Chalky put out a list that he was running for, Megafin, and I gotta say, it's mega fun. It's a great deck. It's absolutely a great time to get out that giant Murloc and play a bunch of Murlocs, but yeah, to your point, Elemental Shaman has kind of been what's picked up. I wouldn't be surprised if Snail here is running Board Control's list. Thus far, that seems to be the most consistent list. I've played a ton of it in the past 2 days. It's a very consistent deck. Has a lot of great matchups, deals pretty handily with the Pirate Warrior variant, has a decent shot against the Quest Warrior, has a lot of very favorable matchups. No real clear point where it suffers. Obviously, card draw is an issue, but yeah, it's a very consistent deck.
Yeah, card draw, I would say, is the biggest issue with the Elemental Shaman build. And here you can see there's some Jade support in this deck as well. Just Jade Claws, Jade Lightning, and Eye of Blackpaw is still enough to warrant running the entire package. The biggest problem that I have with Elementals is simply their requirement, their barrier to entry. In order to get the Battlecry benefit off of an Elemental, you need to have played one on the turn prior. So if you don't draw well, and considering that this deck doesn't usually run much card draw at all, you can be rather limited in resources and not gain what makes these elemental cards so very strong, which is their battle cries. And then looking at Joan's Priest build, we see Inner Fire in hand. Divine Spirit Inner Fire is not just cards that you throw into a beginner Priest deck anymore. They are very, very strong in this list. It's going to run Lyra the Sun Shard, and then it will, of course, have Elise the Trailblazer, potentially, which is one of my favorite cards coming out of Journey to Un'Goro. I know you like it too, Rob.
Yeah, I mostly like it because you can Shadow Vision and discover more Un'Goro packs, and why wouldn't you just get more packs if you could? Regrettably, you can't keep the cards you get from those Un'Goro packs, but they're nice in the game you get them. I just want to point out, though, 3 viable Priest archetypes in 2017.
And Hunter's back in the meta. It's like Christmas came early.
Hey, really, this set has just been a ton of fun so far, and I say that as a biased Blizzard employee, but I really have just played so much more Hearthstone in the past week than I think I really was playing in the month before, so very exciting set. Now, to your point about the elementals, yes, there is kind of that issue with the elemental chain. It breaks at Torvir Stone Shaper, and then you pretty much have to restart it when you want to start getting into Servant of Kalamos, Blaze Caller, but Shaman, I think more so than other classes, has the Mercy offering of Alakir they can use. They have the ability to use Fire Elemental, so they get a little bit of support, and they can discover some big things. Obviously, Kalamos, the Primal Lord. I really have enjoyed this deck, and I think the Elemental package in general is worth exploring across Paladin, is worth exploring across Mage, because you have some really solid Elemental support.
It is undeniably a very strong deck. I think it's one that is still in development, as most of these decks that we're seeing are. I don't think any deck has really been fully perfected at this point. It's only a week into the meta.
Except Core Rogue.
Yeah. Oh, Core Rogue.
So close to Koro Rogue.
I'd rather it not be.
All right, we see Snail has a pretty good turn here if he wants it. He can go ahead and just go right in that Servant of Kalamos, find something big. He's not on any kind of clock here with this Priest deck, especially now. Well, the board's not out of hand for the Priest, and one version of Priest, Purify Priest, no joke, is a thing that exists, can make really huge boards. They have to always be worried about with the Inner Fire, Divine Spirit combo. But based on what the board has for Joan right now, it's not actually that big of an issue.
Purify, Inner Fire, Divine Spirit, Stone Tusk Boar is in this meta.
Yep, Wisp.
Rexar in general.
Wisp.
Oh, man.
And I quote, there are no useless cards in my deck. They're all...
My grandfather has no useless cards.
That is still one of my favorite videos ever made by the Hearthstone community. I still watch it every night before I go to bed.
Every night, Rob.
Yep.
All right, so the Discover here off of Servant of Kalamos, pretty weak for Snail. Generally, you are hoping to find Fire Elemental, Kalamos Primal Lord, Frozen Crusher, 6 mana, 8/8. After you attack, freeze this card.
I believe it was Sottle who actually coined Shtanudachi as Frozen Crusher, so that's what I'm just going to call it. It's just Shtanudachi now. I like that.
That's mean.
Well, Shtanudachi is
dang.
Ice Cold Killer, I'll say. But yeah, that was pretty weak offering, all things considered, for that Servant of Kalamos. But, Frozen Crusher, big body, 6 mana, 8/8. Could potentially bait out a Shadow or Death.
Oh,
Maybe
Rob,
that's
I
something
hate that card so much.
Frozen Crusher?
It's so bad in Arena. That's the only time you're ever going to see it, and it just... You attack with it once, and
Silence
then...
Priest.
Okay,
I have seen it. And look,
really?
I'm rank 3. Okay, occasionally I see reasonable decks. It happens. Not totally a schlep.
Oh, shush.
But yeah, Frozen Crusher does have a place. It is a very powerful card in certain situations, but yeah, in this particular situation, definitely kind of coming up a little bit bum.
No, not what Snail wanted to see here. Curious Glimmer Root coming into hand for Joan. Also, a fantastic inclusion into the Priest class from Journey to Un'Goro.
Yeah.
It pulls a card from your opponent's deck and then picks up 2 other cards from that class. If you can pick which one is in your opponent's deck, you get a copy of it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun watching players try to guess.
It's hard sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it is. I was watching the other day, I believe it was day 2 of Global Games. It was somebody trying to pick between Frost Nova, Counterspell, and something else. They were like, well, of course it's Frost Nova, and it was actually Counterspell, and then they got nothing.
I was really worried that this the Discover options would be just the most absurd things from the class, like Fiery War Axe, Inner Rage, and something completely useless from the Warrior class. But it actually has proven to be pretty deceptive.
Yeah, curious. Glimmerroot has, been a card that people are actually seriously considering, which, for 3-mana 3/3, those aren't always the cards that get the most consideration because of what is kind of an unfavorable stat line.
Yeah, it's not the best, but in Priest, where you just need resources sometimes, a random card from your opponent's deck can be very helpful. Looking at Jowen's hand, though, this is very... Well, it's not good. It's very situational at this point. He doesn't have any large minions other than the Priest of the Feast to actually use Divine Spirit Interfire on, which looks like what he was going for here, but it's so easy for Shaman to remove minions with Jade Lightning, with Hex.
Yeah, I want to point out, though, as you see these players talking again, that they're actually just chatting with the rest of their teams. Some of the teams have gotten together, been hanging out in the same house. Looks like a lot of fun. One of my favorite things was seeing Team Germany roleplay the Vine Cleaver as they were slashing with it in-game. But these guys are on comms, on voice comms with the rest of their team. So these turns end up taking a little bit longer. Oh, okay.
Okay, so you remember that situation I was talking about where one is just so obvious? Yeah, it's going to be one of them.
I mean, that worked out really well for Jowen.
It did.
Yeah.
Hex is a great pickup. I don't know that it's exactly what he needs right now, though. Jowen needs to find a way to come back on board, and then he's looking to, surprise, kill his opponent with Divine Spirit Interfire. Hand right now is just not giving him any help here.
Yeah, Jowen's also a very expressive individual. Is one of my favorite things about him. He's certainly someone who you can actually see the stress of these turns on his face as he kind of bounces around, puts his hands on his head going like, oh, what do I do, what do I do? We see here now the Radiant Elemental, which is the Priest better statted version, in my opinion, of Sorcerer's Apprentice, is going to allow him to cycle a bunch of spells if he wants to.
Well, Jowen's just
missing
that feels... 12 damage there.
Okay, so when you do this, you are pretty much saying there cannot be a Hex in hand, or else I've already committed so much. And, to Jowen's credit, things are just getting to the point where Shaman is doing what Shaman does. It's crowding the board. It's putting more and more things out. There is no lack of minions to play for the Shaman. And Jowen's just like, okay, how do I actually get something going? And the rope was winding down. He was talking to his teammates. So I have to imagine that turn did not go the way he wanted it to.
No, what he was looking to set up here is the 2-turn kill on Snail. If Snail did not have a way to remove the Cabal Talon Priest or a taunt minion, Jowen was just really, really hoping very hard that 2 attacks from it would end this game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, rope burned. He missed that attack. And now it's looking like Snail is going to be able to put himself on the board and actually just close out this match for Argentina.
Yeah, it's going to require something miraculous. We see Jowen just shaking his head. He's like, no, this isn't how this was supposed to go.
It's unfortunately the only option it looked like he had. The hand just not doing Jowen any favors this game, and there's a Northshire Cleric just to rub some salt in the wound.
Yeah, I was going to say a little bit of bad manners from the Maelstrom portal there, just saying like, hey, I got a Northshire Cleric. Heal, I dare you. Heal that Glimmerroot. Do it. You won't. He's not going to. He'll get rid of the Northshire Cleric before he does, but yeah, the situation is looking pretty grim for Jowen and by proxy Team Australia.
I mean, there's some much-needed draw picked up from the Acolyte of Pain, but just looking at the difference between these hands from Argentina and Australia, Snail's hand is so full of value, and Jowen's has been just reflexive cards this entire game. Situational spells that haven't helped him get back on board and haven't helped him close out the game. They really have served pretty much no purpose up to this point.
As a Hunter main core, that's just no way to live your life. You shouldn't be sitting there with a bunch of reactive cards. You should be putting beasts on the board, giving them taunt and +2/+2, playing
using
6 mana
Steady
5/5.
Shot.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Steady Shot is just... I could just go on forever. Dinomancy? No. No.
I like Dinomancy.
I mean, it's great if you don't want to do damage to your opponent. I don't understand.
No Dinomancies here, however.
I've yet to play that card. I just disenchanted it. It will never be in any of my decks. I don't understand why anyone would use it. But meanwhile, Jowen's situation has not gotten any better. And we are going to learn all about what it's not diamonds that are girl's best friend. It's actually
golems.
Yeah.
Can confirm.
Yeah.
I like them a lot.
So if the mister just brings you home some golems, you're like, great, this is exactly what I wanted.
Great, this is what I wanted for my birthday.
This is how we get
golems.
Yeah. All right, well, Jowen will be able to, get a card off of the Wrath of Air totem that was buffed by the Flame Tongue totem. Shadow Visions comes into hand for Joen, and it'll be interesting to see if this can somehow turn things around. Maybe get a Dragon Fire Potion, bring the board to heal a little bit. Unfortunately, you're going to still be getting the fairly reasonable size Golem 5/5 off of Aya Blackpaw, but want to take a quick moment to highlight Shadow Visions. This is such an important spell for Priest. It allows you to discover a copy of a spell in your deck, and you know, Priest, because it has so many reactive spells, you kind of need to have exactly what you need in the situation when you need it, as opposed to getting like a bunch of other random spells. We see here Potion of Madness, Shadow Visions, and Shadow Word Pain. None of those are going to fix this situation.
That is not what Joen was hoping to see here whatsoever. Shadow Word Pain can take out the Flame Tongue totem, but...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and I think Snail's probably pretty relieved to see that, because I think Dragon Fire Potion, while it wouldn't have exactly been disastrous, would have definitely trimmed down the board a fair bit, whereas this pretty much tells Snail, like, didn't get it.
I mean, it turned out all right because of the Hex off of the Curious Glimmer root. Joen was able to shut down that Aya.
Yeah. And that is important. It is important to note that is a 5-attack minion that was also going to make a 5/5, so shutting that down is very important for the long-term goal of surviving. But again, Joen has really yet to find a way to really do anything, and you know, there comes Frozen Crusher. Could also throw out the Tar Creeper or Hot Spring Guardian if Snail is feeling so inclined. Maybe not necessarily worried about area of effect removal right now.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be if I were in his position. Snail did not even get to play an elemental on the previous turn, so Blaze Caller and Tolvir Stone Shaper weren't active this turn, and he's still just so far ahead of Joen. So Joen needs to find some way to clear this board and then apply pressure, and his hand just doesn't do either of those things right here. He's in just such a bad spot.
Yeah. We did see Snail there choose to put the 4/4 into the damaged Acolyte of Pain. I do want to point out, you know, that if a Northshire Cleric had come down from Joen, there could have been opportunities to draw cards off of that. If, you know, a Power Word Shield had come off, I'm not sure how many copies Joen has played, probably both, but there was reason to get rid of that Acolyte of Pain, just to absolutely make sure you continue to strangle out resources from Joen.
Wild Pyromancer picked up. Joen trying to figure out if there's some fancy way he could clear this board, but with only 3 spells in hand and one of them healing all minions on the board for 4, it's not going to be possible. But he does have Northshire Cleric in hand, meaning that if he wanted to draw a whole lot of cards this turn, he absolutely can.
Yeah, depending on which route he goes here, okay, so he's going to play that Northshire Cleric. You begin by playing the coin to damage all these minions. You're going to draw a lot of cards here, but this is pretty much your final effort. You have to draw something that pretty much sets you in a position to win the game.
Well, he's going to get 5 draws. Let's see what they are. Okay, so Lyra the Sunshard and Radiant Elemental coming into hand, but the rope is burning yet again. Joen does not have enough time to execute a combo here with Lyra and some cheaper spells, so he's just going to have to wait until next turn.
That reminded me of an old-fashioned Amaz turn right there, where Amaz is trying to do some math and figure out exactly how to clear the board, but Joen doesn't, and he drew cards, but I think the only ones really worthy of mentioning there are Lyra the Sunshard and Radiant Elemental. Shadow or Death will, you know, destroy the Frozen Crusher, but again, he needs to get his own agenda going.
Well, his hand's looking a lot better now. Lyra the Sunshard, whenever you play a spell and Lyra is on the board, you get a random priest spell in your hand. It seemed really underwhelming right when it came out, and I think a lot of people judged it incorrectly. Some of these priest spells that you can pick up from Lyra are very impactful. So if Joen is, well, able to, you know, Miracle Rogue style go off with Lyra and priest spells, he could certainly find himself crawling back into this game.
Yeah, get some Power Word Shields, start, you know, putting minions on the board, buffing their health, looking for that Inner Fire combo. That's pretty much the only way he's going to win this. It is not going to just be honestly done on the board. You know, he has to kind of put down some big tricks here. Snail just pretty much looking at his hand and going, how do I want to spend all this mana with these minions I have? Eventually goes for the Tolvir Stone Shaper, and he is, wow, okay, I gotta be honest, watching 8 damage go to a Northshire Cleric kind of hurts my heart.
And then you do not get to attack with the Frozen Crusher on the following turn either. Okay, there's another Divine Spirit in hand for Joen. now he is going to try to put something together here.
I'm sorry. I'm still just upset about this 8 damage into an Northside
I
Cleric.
know you are. Because it represents even more card draw for Joen, and that's dangerous. Snail doesn't want to give him any more resources than he already has, but Joen has the whole world in his hand now.
I mean, is that really the world you want to live in? That's not a world I want to live in.
Maelstrom Portal takes out the 4/1 Golem and the Searing Totem and the Divine Shield. It's not bad.
I was going to say, is it maybe just time to play Lyra and start generating some spells?
Ideally, you play Lyra and the Radiant Elemental on the same turn, and unfortunately here now you could not play Lyra, Elemental, and Maelstrom Portal. Frozen Crusher's frozen next turn as well. I think you just go Maelstrom here.
Sure. Okay, so Joen making the read, yeah, the Frozen Crusher won't be able to do anything next turn. The 3/5 Divine Shield is down, but you don't necessarily just see straight up a way for Priest of the Feast to be cleared. So you're thinking, okay, maybe this is the beginning of how I make a comeback here. Unfortunately, going to get the news that Blaze Caller is in the hand for Snail. Cannot see a universe where Blaze Caller is not Blade.
Well, and Priest of the Feast is just a fantastic target for Divine Spirit Interfire. So if Lyra were to come down next turn, give something for Joen to put those combo pieces on, and maybe you pick up Shadowward Pain, maybe you get an attack through with it that turn. So it was definitely correct to play the Priest of the Feast. But yeah, to your point, Blaze Caller is just such an efficient removal piece.
Yeah, this is one of those cards where when it was being shown off and first initially previewed, we were all just looking at it because this was actually the first time I'd seen it as well. It was just going, that is a nuts card. That is a build around. That makes elementals work, and we see why. The raw power, 6/6 body for 7 that deals 5 damage to any target. I mean, that's not just to minions. That's not just to your opposing hero. So flexible. One of my favorite cards from the set.
Definitely an inclusion in Elemental Shaman builds for sure. I think this just might have to be the turn where Joen makes some magic happen.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a lot more resources, so that is upside. The Shaman doesn't necessarily have that much going on. It does have the board, though, which is pretty good. So it's important to know, when I say that the Shaman doesn't have much going on, I mean in terms of hand size, which
yes,
to be expected for Shaman, but...
poor Thrall.
All right, Purify.
Neither of your minions are good targets for Purify. Probably going to hold off on that one.
Yeah, see here, Purify. Silence a friendly minion draw card. When it was first revealed, Purify was admittedly kind of a joke card for the community, but it is rallied. Humongous Razor Leaf, some of the other big minions that can't attack unless silenced. Purify has actually found a home, and we've seen a lot of the pro players in the community actually playing it in earnest as a serious deck to climb the ladder with.
There are worse cards than Purify now, and that continues to amaze me. And look at all of the resources Joen has picked off of Lyra the Sun Shard. Mind Blast, Dragonfire Potion, Holy Fire, Greater Healing Potion. This is all stemming from the turn when he played Wild Pyromancer, Northshire Cleric, Coin, and Circle of Healing. He got the resources that he needed, and now we're seeing the true power of Lyra the Sun Shard coming through here.
Well, before we get on this train where suddenly the Priest has turned this around, I would like to see exactly how many cards the Priest has, because I drew a lot of cards there, and yeah, you can keep clearing the board, but fatigue could be a factor. That said, you have a 9/9 that is generating spells, so you're pretty much saying to Snail, all right, buddy, you're either going to deal with Lyra, or I'm just going to keep generating spells and, keep you off the board, basically.
Oh yeah, Lyra has a huge target on its back. You cannot leave that on the board if you are Snail. It is just too efficient to generate resources for Joen. And of course, fatigue is something you need to keep in mind, but the Greater Healing Potion in hand can help you live through fatigue for at least a little while. It is heal 12 health to a friendly character.
All right, we do see the Jade Lightning being pointed at Lyra. Snail clearly having a discussion with his teammates, figuring out, is this a time? Do I have to sacrifice my 6/6? Decides he pretty much has to. So, can't blame him there. Even going to throw out the Thalnos just to get a little more cycle going. Doesn't really have much in his hands. He's now played both Jade Lightnings. He's played a Maelstrom Portal. So, at this point, he's running far fewer spells than you would have seen, in some of the earlier iterations of Shaman a couple months ago.
That's absolutely true. And it is also really important to note that this is about as big as the Jade Golems get. for the Elemental Shaman builds. You only run Jade Claws, Eye of Blackpaw, and Jade Lightning. So Dragonfire Potion here, I think, would be quite good. Joen wants to get value off of the Potion of Badness, however. He's going to draw a card here and put himself into Fatigue a turn earlier.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much banking on the fact that, like, look, he has enough resources to destroy anything Snail puts down. But it is kind of an interesting thing because, as we see in hand, no minions.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, Joen can remove everything that Snail has, but how is he going to kill him? Mind Blast and Holy Fire is 10. Snail's at 19 and has quite a few cards left in his deck. I mean, Joen may be able to drag this game on for another 5 or 6 turns, but
we have to see what's left in Snail's deck, because Snail's deck, from what we can see just on the right side of the board there, still looks pretty healthy.
I'm expecting Columnus Primal Lord. I'm expecting another copy of Blaze Caller. There's big minions left in Snail's deck.
Yeah, and Snail's kind of figuring, like, do I even need to play the Tar Creeper here? Maybe I just save it. Maybe I basically just wait until he does something. Because at this point, you're thinking, how many minions does he actually have left? And you want to make sure you play the Tar Creeper to guarantee value from one of those other beefier elementals. I mean, Tar Creeper is not an offensively frightening card. You know, and what are you really trying to protect from? Maybe you jabate him into healing his own cleric.
Oh, Rob. Is it that time already?
I just like a good excuse to play Stay Debated. It's true, you can ask anybody from the HCT cast.
Yeah, I mean, Tar Creeper coming out for Snail. Joen knows he has no minions in hand and just going to concede that game and concede the match over to Argentina.
Yeah, I was, when we went for that all or nothing, like, let's draw as many cards as we possibly can off the Wild Pyromancer, off the Northshire Cleric, that's what you have to do in that situation because things are looking so grim, but what did it actually get you?
I mean, by the time you pick up the resources and are able to combine all of those cheap spells with Lyra, you have no minion resources left. No Elise the Trailblazer in this deck to give you that Ungoro pack. So, unfortunately, Joen just, well, the clock ran out for him and for Australia. And Argentina just putting on an absolute show here in match number 1.
Yeah, when I spoke to those guys, they were extremely confident. They said, we're going to come out here, we're going to win, and we're going to show people. And, I want to stress, the prep going into this specific tournament, the deck lists are unknown. There's a lot of innovation going on, like how we're building these lists, what we're trying to do. So for Argentina to go 3-0 here is pretty big for them over Australia, which is an extremely skilled team. I would put them definitely upper part of the pack.
Yeah, this is certainly, I would say, a bit surprising. Argentina is an incredibly strong team. I think we expected Australia to maybe put up a bit of a bigger fight. Certainly some of these games, there was nothing they could do, but ultimately Argentina pulls it off. 3-0 over Australia. Ildami and Twiz not even getting a chance to play in their first match in the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, definitely a very quick series. Let's go ahead and take a look at how this series affects Group C standings. We see Argentina and Russia tied for the lead up at the very top of Group C. Again, this is only week 1. 1-0 isn't necessarily something you fixate on, but it's obviously you want to see that win. You don't want to see the loss. And looking down here, Spain is actually down here 0-1, and Australia is as well. The graphic just doesn't reflect that. Austria and New Zealand have actually yet to play. We'll play their first match next week.
Yeah, a fantastic win from Argentina, putting themselves on the board so early with the Hearthstone Global Games. Many more weeks to come. Certainly Australia can bring themselves back into this tournament, but to be right up there with one of the best teams in this tournament, Russia, at the top of your group after week number 1, that has to feel fantastic, especially for these 4 players in the Argentinian team who have come so far in the past, but still have a lot to prove.
Hey, I just want to point out, if you're one of those people who maybe doesn't necessarily know how good South America is at Hearthstone, little fact here, 2015, every America's Championship from 2015 to 2016 had a representative from either Brazil or Argentina. So South America is very scary in the Global Games tournament. I'm really excited to see what we get from them going forward.
Feels like they've been starting to just dip their toes into competitive Hearthstone, and now it's starting to pay off dividends for them. And we can see that reflected in match number 1 with Argentina playing so very strong.